is what it looks like when it goes wrong. And this is what it looks like when it goes wrong for 6 years. This is the town I live in. And 6 years ago, they took the land, they raised it, they used eminent domain. And if anybody wants to look at it, I'd be happy to share that. That's
where
what
is that?
happens when something goes wrong.
Where is that show?
In Cliffside Park, New Jersey. So this is actually what happens. Nobody's done anything. That's why I am concerned. So we're all a product of our filters, we're a product of what happens. And this is deplorable. One of the things they found out most recently, not too long ago, and as I say, this is 2006, and it looks the same now, 2012, is that the infrastructure of the sewers is not there. It's going to be costing millions of dollars to do that. The infrastructure is not there. So I don't know what happened to the planning, but they had no plan B. Or that is plan B, I'm not sure. So the town was estimating, the doors closed, there's no foot traffic, there's no place to park, they remove the municipal parking. This is my big concern. When things get out of control, so my concern that I wish to mention is, how do you balance that? When something goes wrong, what's going to happen? I don't know what my town officials will be doing with this. They haven't done much of it except move the dirt every October 25th. And then come November 2nd or 5th or 6th, whatever the voting, the next day, the plows stay there and then, I don't know. So I know it's a daunting task, but I definitely think you should have people be, who've been up front and should have been commenting on the property rights. This is a very sensitive issue for a lot of people. I think that's an underlying threat in a lot of the conversation.
Thank you for this. Judy Jordan? Is there a Judy?
Yes,
Right here.
I'm from Somerville also. And my concern is, my comment is about Garden State Value number 8. Provide for healthy communities through environmental protection and enhancement. It says protect and restore the environment, sensitive lands, ecosystems, and natural resources. Ensure healthy places through an increase in quantity and quality of preserved land. Improve quality of air, water, and land. Reduce energy use, carbon emissions, water degradation, and other impacts of development. My concern is the use of the words increase in the quantity of preserved land. And I think if you try to define it more, just like advanced equity, I think that would help people to understand what it means. Because just saying increase in quantity, people are going to think Sackets versus the EPA, where people wanted the EPA to declare their land a wetland area, and the people were thrown off their land. They can't do anything with it. And this scares people when you see terms increase in the quantity of preserved land. What does that mean? And I think you need to define that more so that people, it does make people afraid that there will be eminent domain and that people will lose their land and their rights. And I think you need to define it better or rephrase it somehow.
Thank you, Judy. Ben Nace. N-A-I-S.
I'm a resident of Mercer County. I'm a licensed civil engineer, and I did take the trains to this meeting, and I enjoy trains, and I hope that in 20 or more years we have more train lines. I hope that the government supports more trains and infrastructure. And the state does need to provide infrastructure, so we have, we're able to get into urban areas and around the state much easier. My comment is I would like to see that the map, the state plan map, be brought back into the plan. As an engineer and not a policy writer, I need like a visual of where you want to see the transit villages, where you want to see development, where you want to see redevelopment, where you want to see green areas and farmlands. And I think that's really important to keep the conversation going and to see where the overall plan of the state is, and so you can connect centers together. I think that's an important part of the document. Thank you.
Thank you. Chip, Howard?
I'm Chip Halleck. I'm president of the Newark Regional Business Partnership. We're a 450-member organization comprised of businesses, not-for-profit organizations, and educational institutions here in the city. And before I get into my comments, and I'll shorten them. I won't read what I was going to do tonight. But I always find it interesting, and I got a lot of education tonight, and I always find attending hearings like this, even though some people feel there may not be enough of them, I find a real eye-opening process, because things that I didn't either see in this plan or hear in this plan, other people do. And I think it's a fascinating lesson in civics to participate in a process like this and listen to my fellow citizens and what they have to say. And not always things that any of us would agree with everything that everybody says, but I think it's a very, very good process. Our members and their employees live and work in New Jersey and are concerned about both economic opportunity and the quality of life. They want to be able to provide for gainful employment or business ownership. They also want to be able to enjoy the attributes that make communities places of choice: education, entertainment, a healthy environment. And those aspirations don't have to be mutually exclusive. I think there's a lot that can be accomplished. By looking at a plan like this, I think it's strategic, and I think a lot of the details that many of us would like to see are not going to be in a document that looks at a strategy and tries to help us vision what the state would look like. And those details are going to come later in individual municipalities and as economic decisions are made. Some comments about free enterprise and private property. You know, our members are business owners, they're property owners, and they too are concerned about that. But I think a lot of those details emanate from how people decide to use their property, and there's plenty of flexibility within this framework. This isn't something new. The state plan, redevelopment plan, has been around for a long time, and this is just the latest version of it, and finding more ways to bring economic opportunity within the structure of that plan. We are certainly an advocate for economic revitalization in Newark, and there is a lot of capacity. People who have been here for a long time know, and this city used to have well over 400,000 residents and a lot more business. There is infrastructure here. There's no reason not to bring more people here and more businesses here to take advantage of it. That doesn't necessarily mean it has to be at the exclusion of other places. And I think that's an overriding point in here as well. There is great infrastructure here. One point I do want to note, one absolute correction on page 8. We talk about the Port of New York and New Jersey, and it's referred to as the third largest port in the world, which it isn't. It's the third largest port in the country, which is still terrific, don't get me wrong, and we're very proud of it, but it's not the third largest port in the world. So there's one thing that we should change. Talking about the eradication of silos within government is certainly important. We want to be able to see businesses that want to make decisions and move forward with plans, be able to move forward with those plans without undue interference. We think there have been some positive steps that the administration and the legislature working together have made in terms of smarter incentives to help businesses be here and stay here, cutting back to some level on the degree of the growth of state government. We think are positives, and there needs to be a lot more of that in the future. In conclusion, a state plan that contains vision and goals and some guiding principles that have been cited in the plan, coupled with common sense, will go a long way towards ensuring a livable and prosperous New Jersey for years to come. Thank you.
Thank you. Al, French? The issue of property rights, there's nothing in the plan here that I see that talks about anything to protect individuals' property rights in terms of a property rights council of some sort that would allow those kinds of protection for individuals. And secondly, the other issue about the issue of stakeholders. In my understanding and looking at the plan, stakeholders have been involved. Stakeholders, and I'm not talking about just average citizens who show up, but people who have interest in the plan, and who have come to the table longer and been there longer than citizens have. So we're here at the kind of the end in some way. We already have the draft plan. It wasn't really included for the draft. My concern is that going forward, that there be more citizens involved in the plan. and not just putting comments in, but sitting down at the table. It's one thing to come in an audience like this, and another to sit at the table over a period of time. Okay, next, we'll talk about healthier communities. People will talk about that. But everybody would like to be a healthier community. Who's going to define what that is? And second, so I think that needs to be identified. Secondly, we talk about redistributing money from the Garden State Fund to support the objective of this plan. The issue there seems to be one in which I read a scorecard. We talked about a scorecard. Well, I'd like to see the scorecard. I'd like to know who devised it. I'd like to know who's going to calculate the scores as to who gets the money. And I think that should be clarified. Somebody before mentioned that there should be a glossary. It's of terms in here. This is not easy to get through for those of us who are not planners, land use experts, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm suggesting that that really be something that you incorporate. Secondly, there is getting into the language of it. Not only is it technical in some ways it's vague. Some people say, well, that's good, it's flexible. But we all know that vague language is then subject to interpretation by those who are not elected to make those interpretations, but any agency head or regulator can then decide what that means. So I would say where it can be more specific, or at least clarified, that would be helpful. I go back, okay, the issue of public-private partnerships. When we talk about public-private partnerships and green energy, I have to say most everybody knows what happened in some of the most notorious cases of public-private partnership, in the Cylinder case. What is there going to be in this plan that's going to protect taxpayers who are traveling down that same road? I don't see it. I see a lot of talk about that, of green energy and sustainability, et cetera. See. I go back to my issue that I raised earlier, which is, it's not real clear to me in here, when we talk about, on page 14, incentivizing municipalities to create compact livable communities. And that to me again, and I raised the issue, and I think it should be clarified in this plan, that there should be nothing in this plan that basically starves the suburbs to feed the compact, walkable communities. If people want to live in a walkable community, take Manhattan, for example, as a walkable community. You can walk, you don't have to take a car, you don't have to have a car. But if you don't want to do that, if you want to live in a rural area, because many of us came from a walkable community, we'd like now to be in an area where there's some green grass in it. Okay? We don't want to have to be starved in terms of, and I heard this tonight again, this chase for ratables. And in this plan, there's a criticism of suburbs for looking for ratables instead of looking for other things. Now, just to say, when you mentioned before, okay, my last comment. When you mentioned before, your example of having Home Depot in a town, and then, and something's going to be about sustainability. And you say, well, have a Home Depot come into a town, and it's a rateable, but then you don't anticipate down the road congestion and traffic, all that. That's not sustainable. I don't understand that, frankly, because we asked about sustainable, and you talked about not sustainable. So it's like defining a word by saying what it is not. But, well, what's the alternative to that? When communities are being strangled, suburban communities being strangled by education costs, being strangled by by taxes, property taxes, etc. We do look for ratables. It's the way we have to go to survive. Thank you.
Thank you. Frank, talk?
Yeah. I don't have a prepared speech, but I just want to comment a little bit on what I heard. One, in your opening comments and some of the stuff I've read on the internet, the EPA and the Transit Authority and New Jersey, we got a sustainable website. It is vague. Like this gentleman said, he's covered a lot of what I'm interested in too. It is kind of vague. And as everybody knows, the devil is in the details. And for myself, I'm worried about the details and how that's going to impact me in the long run. And that's what I want to know. All property, so that's all I got. Thank you.
Sheila Kennedy.
Okay. I have been to the previous meetings, and I've already said a lot of things, so I won't repeat them. I do want to say one thing though, is that as a taxpayer and a citizen of New Jersey, someone who pays property taxes, I'm helping pay for this meeting. And if I wanted to talk about a subject that's off topic for my 5 minutes, I should be allowed to do that because I'm helping pay for this meeting. There are few enough meetings for us at this point. 6 is all we have to give input publicly. That's astonishing. I know people who have driven over an hour to get to their nearest meeting. That's wrong. You have people with no car, you have people who cannot get out, you have people who cannot drive, you have older people who are not represented in this process. And that's wrong. We need more input. We need more public input. Why was there no public input? I'd like to know that. The public input is happening now at the end when the plan's already been drawn up. We should have been involved at the very beginning. We, the people who own the land that will be affected by these ordinances, should have been included at the beginning. And now, we're being told 6 and only 6. But I looked at the resolution from Governor Christie, Lieutenant Governor Lozano, and it says there will be at least 6 meetings. There could be more. It doesn't say 6, only 6, right? That's a public document. Anyone here can look it up. You can also look up all the executive orders online, Executive Order 78, and I would encourage you to do that. We need more input, we need more meetings. The plan has a good base. I think people here would like to help formulate it in a way that would make the citizens of New Jersey happy, that would create jobs, that would help save whatever environment concern need to be saved, to reserve for future use what needs to be reserved. But it's going to be predicated on having adequate citizen input at this point. And I don't mean the stakeholders. Those aren't stakeholders. We're the stakeholders who own the property, developers, private citizens. Now, the assumptions of the plan go into such things as a need for sustainability. Why? Why do we need sustainability? Nobody knows what it means. We must have these definitions. And we must have them online where people in the next meeting can see them and reference them so we're not all asking the same questions all the time. It all needs to be online. A transcript of each meeting should be online where we can clearly read what people have said before, because then we'll get ideas on other things we want to talk about. This process has not been transparent. And again, we the people are paying for this process. It's not right. I'd like to know that we have representatives in the state, in the government, that will help us here. Now, personally, in terms of getting more of these meetings, I'd go to all of them if I could. I find them very interesting. They're not boring at all. Whoever said they were boring is crazy. I've learned more at these meetings and doing this than I have practically in my college life. Now, somebody was saying earlier, and I don't remember who, that all these plans are linked, and that is so. The state plan is broad, and it encompasses a lot. It's not meant to do everything. It will be all things to all people, and that's good. The problem is it's not fixing the problems we already have. We have massive problems in the state right now. How will this plan use free market incentives? How will the plan use free market incentives to fix these problems? That's not described anywhere. Another assumption with this plan is that there's going to be these unknown vast groups coming into the cities from somewhere. I don't know where. We lost a congressional district. We had a net outflow of people in the past several years. The data, the population data on which this plan is based, I believe comes from 2000 census data, is that correct? I think. I don't know if that was revised for 2010, but I do know there were some projections or some projections made forward in 2005 in the review for 2009. Those need to be revised to now. We should be working on current data, not 10-year-old data. I think the plan should be extended 6 months, 1 meeting per county, and then use current data.
Thank you.